Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine and an old Joe Roadie ready to go. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today. Live Music Nation podcast. I'm your host, Jake Gill. We're with Chris. Is it Peimann or Peimann?
Peimann.
Chris Peimann, Director of Advancement, Sheldon Concert Hall and Art Galleries. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Chris, give us a little background on you. Where'd you grow up, and how did you evolve to this position with the concert hall and the gallery?
Sure. So I'm originally from Mount Vernon, Illinois, so about an hour southeast of St. Louis. And as kids, we came to St. Louis a lot for concerts and ball games and all the things that the big city had to offer. So I actually, a little technical glitch there. I ended up at St. Louis University for college.
Okay.
And in doing so, I majored in communications.
Okay.
So obviously with a degree like that, you can take it many places. And I had always loved music and loved the arts. Couldn't do it professionally, but
well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine and an old Joe Roadie ready to go.
Able to help others experience the arts. And I started here at the Sheldon just after graduation in 1998.
Awesome. So you've been there enough to see a lot of things, just besides COVID. You saw life as it was. What do you enjoy the most about your position, Chris?
Well, it really is helping people to enjoy music together the way that I love to. We have kind of our tagline here at the Sheldon is arts without borders, and that can mean a lot of things, but a lot of it is just that connection that people can have with the musicians on stage, with our artists and our galleries, because we are such a small, intimate place. And so just being able to be around so many other music and art lovers and seeing their excitement and being able to share that and having a small part in being able to provide that to them, that really is the best part. It really is seeing people enjoy what we do.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Tell us what happens there, not only at the concert hall, but with your art galleries as well. What kind of events do you guys have?
Yeah. So we're kind of unique in not only the St. Louis area, but kind of around the country. We have a world-class concert hall that's known for its perfect acoustics. And we have hundreds of concerts every year in just a variety of genres: jazz, folk, classical, blues, world music. There's something different every night, which is also such a fun part of the job. And connected with the concert hall is an art gallery. We're open 5 days a week, free and open to the public here in Grand Center in St. Louis. We have lots of other galleries around us, and we have art on music history, architecture, children's art, emerging artists, a wide of exhibits that change. Right now we have an amazing exhibit, a photography by Jeff Bridges, the actor Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
Has taken photos on his movie sets for 30 years. And so come and enjoy the concerts. Before the concert, they can go to the galleries, they can go at intermission and have just a full night of arts in one place.
Wow, that's fantastic. Fantastic. So, as a nonprofit entity, you guys are, correct?
Yes.
What do you find your number one challenge to be?
Well, you really hit the nail on the head by mentioning that we're nonprofit. It really is funding everything that we do is a challenge. Ticket sales only account for about 15% of the costs involved in putting on concerts and putting on exhibits. And so we're constantly looking for new donors. Individual donors have gone up, not only over the last 20 years that I've been here, 24 years, but especially during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Some of those corporations and businesses that used to be stalwart donors in St. Louis, as we know, a lot of their headquarters have moved, a lot of them have closed. And so finding funding really is our biggest challenge.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's ask the opposite question. What's some of the advantages of being a nonprofit entity?
Well, almost the exact same thing. During the pandemic, as you mentioned earlier, that was a really rough time for us as venues. And a lot of the venues who aren't not-for-profit really did have to shut down for a couple of years. Because we do accept donations, we were able to stay open during the pandemic and still present music. We started doing it streaming online, and then a little bit to very small audiences. Again, we weren't covering our costs in any way, but because of donors that contributed to us to keep us open, we were able to still provide music and art and fulfill our mission, even while we weren't having people buy tickets. So having that community support really does. It's a huge benefit, and it's a huge privilege to be able to do that.
What about endowments and memorials? Do you guys have that set up in structured that way?
We do have an endowment program, and so we're lucky. We're one of the great institutions in St. Louis that has a little bit of a cushion. If we were to get in an emergency situation like the pandemic and didn't have that support, we'd be able to survive. And memorials as well, and tribute gifts. We have a wonderful donor and former board member who passed away a couple of years ago. His wife then passed away shortly after him, and they left us a huge endowment, a huge gift to let us improve our facilities. And so we were able to redesign one of our banquet rooms here at the Sheldon.
Oh, wow.
New lights and sound and other things. So those sort of gifts are ones that can continue to give for decades to come.
Yeah. One of the things that we saw early after the pandemic, and talking with a lot of nonprofits and a lot of the entities at the time we were talking about were religious organizations, churches, and those types. And they actually, from a financial standpoint, really came out of COVID very well. And sadly, because of the memorials and the dollars that were left in people's wills. And, that's just kind of, it was, you don't want to call it a benefit, but it is, I guess, a positive side effect of something that came out. It was funds and money that was eventually going to go to those organizations anyway. They just may have went there a little bit earlier. So that's interesting as a nonprofit to have advantages like that. Okay. Enough serious talk. Let's have some fun conversation. What is the number one? What's the best all-time show you've ever seen in your life, Chris?
Oh gosh, it's hard to narrow it down because there have been so many over the years. But we had an amazing night with David Crosby and Graham Nash.
Oh.
On election night of 2008. And, those guys can be political, but we thought, you know what, we're going to go on with this concert. It's going to be so much fun. And David Crosby was the one who announced to the crowd that President Obama had won the election that night. Mm-hmm. It just turned into a huge party. Of course, people who follow David Crosby tend to follow his politics as well. So it was a positive crowd and a positive night. But just seeing how music and politics and how that intersected, and how people just had this, again, a shared experience that will never be forgotten. Not to mention, it was just an amazing concert with all of the Crosby, Stills, and Nash hits.
For sure. For sure.
Guys in such a small space, they usually would play at a much larger than we have. So that was definitely memorable. I also have to say that we had Lyle Lovett and his large band perform a few years ago. The large band was definitely too large for our stage, and some of the instruments were starting to kind of, shake off the side. Oh, wow. But it was just powerful and amazing. And again, seeing those types of performers that would normally be in a larger venue just are so special.
Okay, last question. Dead or alive, you could bring one act to your theater. Who would you bring?
Oh gosh. Again, I'm glad you warned me about this question before I got here, because that's such a big one. But I think I have to say Dolly Parton.
Okay.
So wonderful and such an amazing performer, but also so authentic in her personality that I know she would just connect with our audience so well.
That's great. Chris, how do people find out more about the Sheldon Concert Hall and your art galleries?
The website's the best place, of course, thesheldon.org, and you'll find our whole schedule there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on with us.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
You bet. Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine.